Today's subject is the belief in metamorphosis in the child and in archaic premodern worldview. Metamorphosis means the belief that members of any kind can change to members of another kind, so that stones can transform to ghosts or crocodiles can transform to humans, or that plants can transform to horses, or horses can transform to birds. And this belief is very strong in the child aged 2, 3, 4, 5. And with 6 years of age, it has disappeared already. So it is very strong only in the child very young and disappears before the 6th or 7th year of life in modern societies. And that means this belief belongs to the preoperational stage, and that the preoperational stage is the sole condition and cause to its existence. Piaget saw the belief in metamorphosis as a pre-runner of the conservation of the understanding of the conservation of identity. The conservation of identity was seen by Piaget as the first manifestation of the concrete operational stage, and therefore it comes into being with the 6th year of life before the conservation of other physical dimensions such as length, space, number, volume, and so on. Before other physical identities are conserved, identity is the first form of conservation and therefore coming into being so early in life. And that means that the belief in metamorphosis is a clear manifestation, a very clear manifestation of the existence of the pre-operational stage. And we can test this with surveys. For example, Katz de Vries made surveys in 1969 with kindergartners, the so-called metamorphosis tests, that are tests where children have to judge about alleged transformations. A cat to dog test, a cat to rabbit test, and so on. The experimenter takes a dog, puts over the head of the dog a mask of a cat, or reverse, he takes a cat and puts over the head of the cat a mask of a dog, and asks then the children what kind, to which kind the animal belongs. And the children can beforehand play with the dog, can pet him, and can hear the dog barking. And they can see how the experimenter put the cat mask on the dog head. And then the children are asked whether the dog with a cat mask is a cat or a dog. And the children, very small, aged 3, 4, 5, say that the dog has transformed into a cat, and that it is now a cat before them, and not anymore a dog dressed with a cat mask. And when you ask then the children how the internal organs of the animal are, and what kind of children these animal would produce, or which kind of food it would take, then the children respond that the dog with a cat mask, now being a cat, would give birth to cats, would eat the food of cats, and would meow like cats are doing. And a lot of other experiments conducted the same way or a similar way led to the same results. For example, you take a lion and paint him tiger stripes on his body, so that the lion has now a fur with tiger stripes. And then the children, though having seen the painting, judge that they have now in front of their eyes a tiger, and not a lion with tiger stripes painted on the body. And if you ask then the children what the beast would eat, tiger food or lion's food, would give birth to lions or to tigers, then the children aged 3, 4, 5 say that they have now a tiger concerning all aspects of life before their eyes. The tests were conducted by Katz de Vries in 1969 and by Frank Kyle in 1986. And but the subject was known among child or developmental psychology before these surveys. It was known among them even in the beginning of the 20th century, and it was known to early child or developmental psychology before World War II already. So when the children are 6, 7, 8 years, they don't believe anymore in such kinds of metamorphosis. The first traces of the beginning of the concrete operational stage, or even the transformation from the pre-operational stage to the concrete operational stage, suffice to convince children into the impossibility of such kinds of metamorphosis. And when you ask the children very young how this transformation is possible, then they say, and they have seen that the transformations took place within seconds, and that it is some kind of magic that makes these transformations and metamorphosis possible. It is to them a question of magic, of magical powers, and it resembles to the beliefs of children that a person or an object can appear in space from nothing within a second. So, like a ghost can appear in a room from nothing and can stand there in the room within a second just by magic. So the transformations from one kind to another kind can take place within a second just by magic, just so. It does not require a long process a long process of transformation that makes a member of one kind to a member of another kind. It happens within seconds, just by magic, just so. And this strong belief in metamorphosis disappears very early. And what we see now is that premodern societies, especially beliefs in nature peoples, but not only in nature peoples, also beliefs in medieval times and in early modern times in Europe, manifest corresponding beliefs in metamorphosis. We find the belief in metamorphosis in every pre-modern society without any exception. It is clear that the belief in metamorphosis is stronger among very culturally backward societies than in educated societies, and we can easily imagine that the belief in metamorphosis is weaker in ancient Rome and in medieval Europe than in Black Africa or in Black Australia or among other nature peoples. But the belief in metamorphosis was strong enough in medieval times and in Europe's 17th century to let lawyers and intellectuals believe that witches can transform to birds and that witches can transform to animals of all kinds, and that this belief was severe and strong is viewable and understandable against the consequences that this belief had, because persons were sentenced to death persons who were accused and convicted of having transformed to members of other kinds. If the Europeans hadn't believed into the possibility of metamorphosis in a very severe manner, they wouldn't have punished persons to death of whom they had believed that they had transformed into members of other kinds, transformed to birds, to witches, transformed to predators or to stones or whatever. And this shows that preoperational stages or manifestations of the preoperational stage were still prevalent in Europe's 17th century, or in Rome 500 years ago. It was widely believed that humans can transform to cats, and that many cats they saw in the streets were nothing else than transformed humans who had used and applied magical charms. And you see this belief in metamorphosis in Europe also in the belief in werewolves, humans that had transformed to wolves to kill other persons. And this belief was very strong even up to the 19th century. And this belief in metamorphosis is accompanied and supported by eidetic hallucinations and visions, is reported for many ethnographic documents from Africa of the 19th century. There was an observation made by Cardinal in the 19th century in Togo, where he saw that a woman who have slept overnight in a house of an official, that many persons saw her next morning in her room as a being consisting of body parts both of human and hyena nature. The woman declared to have the power of turning at night time into a hyena. Because of the dogs, however, she wanted to transform back into human form before dawn, as a fly settled on her and thus prevented her from completing the metamorphosis. She had to wait for the next night in order to retain her human form. Accordingly, many people saw her with an upper half in human form and legs of a hyena. Thus, these people not only believe in metamorphosis, but also had really seen her in this presentation with their own eyes. Cardinal said, I quote him, "Now that scene was witnessed by some 30 people, many of whom were educated and supposedly Christian. The one and all believed implicitly that they had seen a being half hyena and half woman. The fact that we all Europeans who passed saw only a naked woman and nothing else detracted nothing from their face. It merely showed that what the African sees is not the same as that what the European can see. The woman was driven out of the town by the natives and returned to Kumbungu." Unquote. And this is only explainable when we presume that the belief of the natives was supported by some kind of visions, of some kind of hallucinations the Europeans could not share. The discoverer David Livingstone reports the strong belief in metamorphosis at the Lower Zambezi at his time. I cite him. "There are also a great many lions and hyenas, and there is no check upon the increase of the former, for the people, believing that the souls of their chiefs enter into them, never attempt to kill them. They even believe that a chief may metamorphose himself into a lion, kill anyone he chooses, and then return to the human form. Therefore, when they see only one, they commence clapping their hands, which is the usual method of salutation here. The consequence is here that lions are so abundant that we see little huts made in trees, indicating that the places where some of the inhabitants have slept when benighted in the fields." Unquote. Frederick Arnault reports the same phenomenon from Africa of the past decades of the 19th century. He says that in Garenganse, people seem to be too coward to attack predators, and that the predators have increased to such heights that people could not wander through the landscapes and were endangered by the predators to an astonishing amount. And as Arnault asked them why they did not kill these predators, they said that 2 lions and 2 leopards would never endanger humans and would never attack humans, and that only the witches and sorcerers who have transformed into leopards and lions would attack humans, and that it would not make any sense to fight against these sorcerers and witches because their powers would be too strong. The belief in metamorphosis includes also the belief that magicians or normal persons who resort to magic can carve a crocodile from a piece of wood and take this crocodile toy or this crocodile model, put it into a stream, into a river, let the crocodile model run down the stream in order to bring it into a position where it can transform to a real crocodile and killing the person that was intended to kill by the person who made the crocodile model. And this was really believed in Black Africa during the 19th century. That if you want to kill a person, you take a crocodile model, carve it from a wooden piece, and having so the possibility to kill the person one wanted to kill by the transformation of the model into a real crocodile. Lucien Levy-Bruhl, the great ethnologist, the greatest ethnologist of the 20th century, reported about examples of metamorphosis. And he comes to the following conclusion. I cite him from his book La mythologie primitive of 1935. No metamorphosis, however ridiculous it might appear to us, is therefore ruled out simply as physical impossible. There are no a priori impossibilities. These primitives know no obligation to take account of any conditional limits upon possibility. According to our way of thinking, if we could suppose it possible for a man to change himself into a dog, we should not expect the change to stop at the substitution of one kind of outward and visible appearance for another. From smooth-skinned biped to shaggy quadruped. Certainly something more than that would seem to be involved. The new dog would seem scarcely likely to have much in common, mentally speaking, with the former man. More, we are so convinced of this incongruity that any such change is necessarily considered by us to be possible only in the realm of fancy. Nothing will ever persuade us that in sober reality a man could turn into a dog or a dog into a man. When a telegram announces there has been a fire in New York City, which has caused vast damage, it would not for an instant occur to us to refuse to believe it. We have heard numerous times before about buildings being burned down with everything in them. Just in the same way, when in a moose or a tale a wolf takes off its skin and reveals himself to be a human being, any Eskimo will be familiar with that particular transformation. He has met with it time and again. So such a trifle will not hold him back for a moment. The question is it really true, will not even arise in his mind, because in his repertoire of possibility, this is something too ordinary to hold a challenge. If we raise a point with him, and supposing he understands what we are questioning, he will be as much surprised by our doubt as we are by his belief. He can't see the reason for it. For him to grasp what disturbs us, he would have brusquely and suddenly to abandon all that part of his own proper habitual belief. He would have to give up his own picture of a world in which mystical forces govern everything and substitute for it an intellectualized European one. This is an enormous demand. We are asking for a miracle. But the simple fact is the native will merely regard the objection as irrelevant, even slightly absurd. A white man's fancy. His reply will be merely a polite affirmation that the stories are quite true. Unquote. And that shows us that the belief in the possibility of metamorphosis is so strong in the native mind as it is in the child aged 3, 4, 5. And this shows again, if we only knew from premodern peoples, especially from nature peoples, but also from European peoples of the 17th century, this would suffice to have demonstrated beyond the slightest doubt that these people were staying on the preoperational stage, on anthropological stages of children. The belief in metamorphosis is a perfect empirical indicator for the preoperational stage as the ruling and prevailing psychological stage in mind, psyche, and brain of premodern or archaic people, including medieval peoples. And again, it is absolutely clear that the discovery of the preoperational stage as a model stage of premodern or archaic people is the most important discovery ever made in the history of the social and human disciplines. I have published about the subject time and again, and I want to show you the most relevant publication on the subject I've made in the German journal Anthropos, the leading German journal in the area of ethnology or cultural anthropology, belief in metamorphosis, developmental psychology as theoretical foundation of cultural anthropology. I would strongly recommend this article when one wants to study the subject.